got my visa in 45 minutes of flying.
Oh, what?
Back from the flight back home because some issue came through. So staying at a hostel in Flinders Street, sharing my room with like at least 8 people. The good part about Melbourne when it comes to cafe and coffee is my name is Sayam. I was an international student 4 years ago. I'm in Australia, currently working for AECC as a business operations coordinator.
How was your experience working for AECC?
It's been great. It was a kind of position that helped me prepare and finalize what I really want to become in the future. That is why I think it was a very successful 1.5 years that I had at AECC. I've always kind of hoped that I'll start my own business. And what I did at AECC last whole year was very related to me relying on my gut and intuition and doing a lot of things. So I think it was a very good experience, very, very fun.
I mean, you yourself weren't an AECC student,
Yeah.
but you've dealt with a lot of them,
Yes.
of course.
Yes.
So how would you say the general vibe is?
With international students or
No,
at
just
AECC?
our students, yeah.
You see the effort once you are behind the scene that any company, AECC, student study abroad consultancy firm like us, they put in making an experience of an international student so nice, which is now what I think is something really essential. Like all the work that we really put in to make sure that everybody is starting right, reaching at the right places. I did not realize it when I was going through the entire process. So a lot of what I did then was kind of based on my intuition, but it would be so much nicer if I had somebody just to go back and refer to, right next to you, because here you're completely in an unknown territory. But if you know that there is a voice and you can be like, oh, this is what I'm going through, and they go like, yeah, you'll be fine. It's very reassuring. So
Yeah,
I think
to like hold your hand through the entire process.
literally like siblings, and that's what we are trying to do here, right? Like that's what we try to cultivate among ourselves, that we help students in that certain sense. Which I think is really important in a city like Melbourne, where it's literally international students coming every single day.
Yeah, it's very easy to get lost here as well. Like
Exactly.
literally and figuratively.
True that. True that.
So even though you weren't an AECC student per se, you were still an international student. So
Yes.
your experience is very much relatable to everyone who's coming here.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, and this is such a specific question.
Yeah.
What was your feeling when you first landed into Melbourne?
I was very, very, very excited. So a little backstory before actually deciding that I want to come live in Melbourne and this is where I want to be for the next few years of my life. That same year, 6 months ago, I took a little trip here for 7 days, and very random, alone backpacking trip, and just it's instant love. Like I was here in the city for 1 week, just walking around, talking to people, drinking coffee, looking at the buildings, and I was like, I went back home and I was like, this is where I want to be for the next 2 years. So I had a little gist of what I was getting into. That made me really excited when I was coming in here. I was like, okay, this was all I saw. This is all I wanted to do. So I had a good enough time to dream about this place before I actually came here. And once I was here, it's a huge battle. Any international student goes through a huge convincing process and application process once they're back home. So I think the only feeling that is valid once you finally make it here is being excited to that feeling and just living in that excitement for a little bit.
So you definitely had an I made it feeling.
Oh, of course. I mean, that first step, unless and until I have had friends who have literally sat on a flight trying to take a flight to US for their further studies, and they have been called back from the flight back home because some issue came through. So once you finally make it in that flight and the flight takes off, you have made it. Like you have actually all your work has been vested for a little bit. So
yeah, like you've completed such a hard part, but there's so much harder yet to come. Like
it's how it's going to be. I mean, it's a process that you will understand that excitement masks your challenges are going to be there. But if you're really excited, you just kind of look at the excitement side, and the challenges kind of don't crosses your mind that much.
That's true. But when you say backpacking, do you mean genuinely like
genuinely
actual
backpacking, staying at a hostel in Flinders Street, sharing my room with like at least 8 people?
Oh, what?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that you did this.
Yeah. Last year, my birthday, Byron Bay, that was the same thing. I literally arrived wearing a suit where people were in swim shorts all the while because I just completed a meeting, took my bags, went to Byron Bay all alone, You have to try it.
I think I'm good, but thanks for the offer. I don't know. I like having my space, and I feel like sharing a room with like
Yeah,
eight
but it's
people.
more about having a mental space. Like once you're out there, you're basically saying yourself what you want to do next, right? Like it's your mind that needs to be free. Accommodation wise, it's fine. Like really doesn't make a long. I'm a social person as well. I'm kind of an extrovert, so I wouldn't say extrovert, but I am a social person. Like I get my energy by interacting with people. So is the nature of my job. Like so, I think it works out.
Not just Australia, but Melbourne specifically to stay here.
Melbourne is a place which is the capital for specialty coffee in the world. So my narrowing down process was pretty much these things. Like when I applied to my university, I really applied to just one university when I was coming to Australia. I told my agent back in India that you're not applying anywhere else, just one university. And they basically go like, oh, you should apply to 3 to 4 just in case you don't get into one, you'll get into another one. But I was like, no, if I get into this, it's fine. I studied in University of Melbourne. If I get into this, it's fine. Otherwise, I'm not going to Australia. I applied for August intake at the end of March, the last batch of people. And I'm like, oh, have people already applied? And so they're like, people apply since August last year.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, let's see how it works. I got my COE 20 days before my admission day. Got my visa in 45 minutes of applying. This is 2019, pre-COVID. And now if you look at it, it's very difficult.
Oh, your admission.
I was really surprised as well because now that we work in this industry and we see what is the process behind it, it seems to be really surprising. And the most surprising part of all of my admission process in retrospection was my SOP. Because people think SOP is something that really doesn't matter when it comes to admission. I know people who have gotten better grades than me applying to the same university and not getting in the same intake. My SOP, the question was basically, how is our program going to help you excel in life and get to where you want to get? And I wrote down that, okay, I want to own few cafes in my future. That's where I'm practically heading. That's where I think I'll be heading. That's why I'm trying to learn coffee from Melbourne as a city. And I'll try to learn business as a program from your university. And combining both of those, I'll be probably closer to achieving where I want to go.
Yep.
And I read it 4 years later, 3 years later. I've read that document every year, and it's just so surprising that whatever was written there, you're still kind of doing that. It's kind of really strange. That was.
So you didn't like really deviate from your main
Yeah,
goal
it's
coming
random. I am so surprised at it because I never thought, things change and like you get onto a different path. So have I done a lot of it? But you just go collect few experiences and you end up finding yourself just walking on that path again and again. That's what I'm kind of at.
here. Yeah. And actually, now I'll let you talk about your coffee, okay?
Yes.
Because it's such a fascinating fixation to me.
Yeah.
Because the first time that I spoke to you, you mentioned that and you said, I love coffee.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that love coffee, but I don't know anyone that loves coffee the way you love coffee.
Loving coffee is different. Like everybody have their own way of expressing their love for coffee. Some people just love the idea of getting their morning coffee, and some people just like the smell of the coffee. They like the taste of the coffee. And I think most people in Australia just like their morning routine of getting that coffee. Like, your brain's really not started in Australia unless and until you have actually walked down, went to your local cafe, got that cup of coffee and had a couple of sips. Nobody in Australia is thinking before that.
Fair enough.
So, back home, people would just get ready in their house, brush their teeth, eat breakfast, and they're ready to attack the day. In Australia, I've literally noticed nobody's ready before they've had their first few sips of coffee. So I understand, like, it's kind of the first thing everybody puts in their stomach in the morning. So I understand how people look forward to it. For me, love of coffee is just a very vague thing. I like to think about it. I'm very curious about coffee. It's not about the love. I'm just very curious about how it's made, how it's processed. There's a whole different experience of working in that industry when you're in Melbourne. It's so competitive, so high tech, and so full of energy. I think I love that process more than the product itself.
You know what also fascinates me? Not just about you, but the entire process or any barista, is every single detail matters.
Yes.
Like how much you grind the coffee, how fine it is.
And it has to,
everything.
Because that's the thing. If a coffee plant takes around 3 years to grow, and that is it's grown in a very selective part of the world. Basically, if the good part about Melbourne when it comes to cafe and coffee is, you go to any cafe here, you're drinking coffee from Ethiopia, Kenya, Colombia, Mexico. All these worldwide grown coffee are at your local cafe in Melbourne. That's like nowhere else in the world. So it's a privilege when you go and you see all these different coffees. Now think about the farmer who has taken 3 years, grown that thing, and now he has processed it, dried it, harvested it in a very particular way. That coffee travels this entire world, comes to a roaster in Australia. He roasts it to a perfect degree and perfect temperature with perfect speed. And then it comes to the cafe, and then the barista just brews the coffee. Now, if the barista is not attentive, the entire process fails. That's kind of my way of looking at it. So I'm like, as a barista, you need to be really on point with it.
Yeah, true. To honor all of that
just
effort.
to make sense.
Yeah.
Just to make sense of
Fair
all
enough.
of the effort.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's gone to waste.
Yeah, and exactness is what you like. Hospitality is all about standards. It's all about, okay, 22 grams and then these many grams out and the exact grind size and 40 ml of liquid in this particular drink. That's what makes it exciting because it's exact. You know
Yeah.
that every second of what you're doing is just measured and it's exact.
It's like genuinely an art, especially the way you talk about it and you describe it, because it's so easy to be like, okay, here's my coffee,
Exactly.
but like you're thinking about where.
So coffee is a product that comes with a lot of story. You know, you talk about taste in coffee, or taste like cherries and jam and, you know,
The
almond
undertones,
finish
yeah.
and this texture. You won't be able to realize this before you have spent 4-5 years into coffee.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
of drinking multiple things, and then also only if you have looked for understanding these factors. These are all words to describe this product.
Yeah.
They are nothing else, just words to describe a particular product and differentiate it from A to B. But then those words create a whole story and whole mystique, and you're consuming that every morning. It's also because I am looking to start a business in it. So it's somewhere I've always prepared my mind that detail is what matters in
Yeah.
business. And to be very honest, like, it's not coffee that made me. It wasn't coffee. It was the idea of owning a successful company and running a business that made me found coffee, not the other way around.
Oh, that's
Yes.
interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I grew up in a culture around a family that has been business people for generations. I come from a state in India, like Gujarat, which is known for businesses. So that's what my entire background has been like. So growing up, I've always seen people running their own enterprises. And that's what I kind of hoped for myself as well. So I was 13, 14 years old and I knew that I'm going to start a business. And then the question came, what are you going to start a business in? Then coffee happened, and now the story is I went to my dad's office. The only year of the day that I'll go into the office is Diwali Puja. Every staff, it's clean, this and that. And my dad just randomly told me, if you don't study well in life, you're just going to be packing the boxes for me here.
That is always the oh my god, the conversations that our parents have with us.
Exactly.
You're gonna end up like
this and that.
Yeah.
And I remember saying him that, okay, I don't want any of it. I'll start my own business. I'll see whatever happens my way.
Wow.
It's just random. I don't know. Some things stick and you just keep following those things.
Wait, hold on. I actually want to ask. Back home, so before you came here,
Yeah.
which you came here in
2019.
okay, so like 5 years ago-ish.
Yeah.
Back home, did you get to work as a barista or like see the process?
Nothing. Zero. So I mean, the coffee thing started. So exactly because I was saying that I wanted to start a business. I came to a point where I was just reading a lot. I was trying to figure out things where my interest is all about. I was reading marketing a lot. I was reading coffee a lot. There's this book called World Atlas of Coffee. I ordered that book, read that book, and I was just blown away. Like, this is me when I was, I think, 19 years old. And I was reading all about it and I was like, oh wow, Melbourne is a place where a lot of coffee thing happens. And that is why I was like, okay, let's take a trip. That is why I came to Melbourne. So it all started back
The
then.
coffee literally brought you here.
The coffee literally brought me here.
That's so cool.
It's cool and crazy. It's weird. Yeah. If I'm thinking about it, it's been so long. And when I look in the future, like, okay, how much do I know about coffee as of today? I still feel like I know so little. Like, no jokes.
How terrifying.
It is very, very terrifying.
How much is there to know?
Every single country hosts their national barista championship. It's more like Olympics. The
Okay.
national championship, and there are baristas, they will prepare, win the national championship, only then you'll be qualified to go to the world barista stage. To prepare that one coffee, a guy is going to start working with a farmer year and a half in advance.
Oh my
Look
god.
for that very one particular coffee and create that story that he wants to sell. He will bring it to the world stage. He has got 15 minutes from there on, and he has to make 9 beverages. So 3 espresso, 3 milk based, and 3 signature drink. Now that 15 minute, every second of that 15 minutes is mapped and practiced over hundreds of times by that particular person. It's so competitive. It's, yeah, once you're into this and you look into that industry, it's just so deep at this point of time.
And so, do you feel like since you hadn't worked as a barista before, now that when you got here,
Yeah.
now you're on the other side?
Yeah.
How do you feel? I mean, how do you feel like Melbourne kind of fueled?
It's all gifted to me by Melbourne as a city itself, because here you go and every single cafe is so professional. It's, the hospitality is so on point, and the hospitality is really delivered differently here than any other country I've been to, and that is one thing that really doesn't really upsets me. But one gap that I really see back home in India and when you consume coffee here is the interaction with the barista. So once you go back in India, there is no interaction. It's just selling you a cup of coffee like any other commodity.
Yeah.
But if you come here, there's this conversation, and then there's this keeping track of your conversation, knowing your customer, and taking it a step further with that community building aspect of the cafe here. That is exactly where I'm fascinated about, creating those communities.
Yeah. And do you feel like that's a testament to Australian culture as a whole? Like, I know it's such a small
100%.
example.
I have learned, accepted, and changed a lot about myself based on the Australian culture, which is all the niceties, thank you, sorry, please, and all the words, the energy, the positivity, the encouragement, that you see somebody having a bad day in a cafe, you make sure they're having the right day. You make sure you can change somebody's mood on a daily basis. It's all Australia, I think. And one thing good about Australia is it's so diverse that you work with people from all cultures and backgrounds. So, you have to become an Australian at some level to even survive in Australia. You need to know these cultural nitty-gritties for you to experience Australia as a whole.
What would you want to leave with an international student who is yet to come here?
Very important thing that anybody should know before they come here is definitely a bit of exactness about what they want to do, because coming to Australia has specifically become a very tough process now, and it's no more all about you can just show up in this country and then figure out where you want to head, because you will eventually end up being nowhere. What course you want to do, and even slightest inclination of your anything that you are really passionate about, you should be choosing to do degree on those bases, not in terms of just migration, because as we all know, policies are getting really, really strict. Just be a little bit more patient, because you're not coming here to be instantly successful in the next year. What I've noticed about myself in Australia personally is that I've always focused on working on my skill, and I've seen like the money aspect of my life getting better automatically. So I think that's one of the biggest observation I've had here, that every single year that I've worked towards my skill, I've kind of grown with the country. The money has always reflected in my account. So don't focus on the money side too much when you are here initially. Just focus on developing those skills, trying to learn things as quickly as possible, and try to learn a lot of different things. And I think always keep trying to upskill and learn, at least till the time you are reaching 26, 27, 28 years of your life. You still have the time to just put everything that you make into upskilling and learning more things, basically. Just if you're focused on doing that, I think you'll be very well served in Australia.
What I think is like unique about your student story especially, and the reason why I wanted to talk to you here, is that you used your time in Australia temporarily.
Yeah.
But I mean, you got the most out of it. You got exactly what you wanted.
Yes.
And now you're going to go elsewhere.
Yes.
Using those skills.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the idea of not basing your stay here on migration or wanting to stay here permanently.
Yes. It really worked in my favor, because initially the idea of migration wasn't certain for me. Let's say around the first couple of years got done, and then I started working here. For the slightest small window, I thought, okay, maybe migration is an option here. It's such a beautiful country. It offers you so many other things. But then again, like, it finally depends on the purpose of your life. Even if you're looking purely moving for migration, you need to be prepared at least at this point of time for 5 to 7 years, and it's constant work, but it's going to be worth it at the end. You're going to be an Australian citizen and you're going to be taken care of for life. So I think that if that's your purpose, come here. You'll definitely hustle, but you'll finally make it no matter what. We see endless stories on a daily basis that people do make it with their migration dream as well.
Yeah.
For example, when I was hired at ACC, I was very much upfront about, okay, this is a very limited time stint that I have here, and then I'm going to be moving on to doing different things in my life.
Yeah.
And ideally, how I would see people talking to the employers are not being very open about their goals, and then suddenly, like, at some point of time, ditching them and leaving everything in a kind of haze, and that spoils your relationship with people. So unless and until you are very honest, and that's how I got my first job as well. I went and put my resume and I told them that I really don't know, I'm very passionate about this and I really want to learn, but I don't know a lot of skills as of today.
Yeah.
And it works for me. They see the honesty, and they that really helps in Australia.
So in consensus, your message is have a plan,
Have a plan.
try to stick to the plan, but it's okay if it changes.
Plan changes. Plan will change.
Yes.
Adapt. Just be patient and relaxed, and things start showing up here.
Yeah.
That's
I think
always the case.
it's a nice note to end it on.